Good. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Advice from a Call Center Geek, the Call Center Contact Center podcast. We try to give you some actionable items to take back in your contact center, improve the overall quality, improve the agent experience, hopefully improve the customer experience as well. How is everybody doing? Oh, Chris, what is up? I'm
Hi, Tom.
super excited about this. So, Chris Mounce from EvaluAgent is coming back on. We've, as any of you have known who have followed, we've been doing and talking a lot about AI and how it relates to QA. And there's probably no better person on here or no better company as well than Chris to come on. And we're going to have a little debate, a little friendly banter, and talk about, where we see and what's real, right? What we think can be scaled right now. How far can we go with actual AI as it relates to QA? So, if you guys have any questions, we're live on TikTok. We're live on LinkedIn. We always do this as an AMA. So please, anything that you guys ask, we'll try to get to if we think it's going to add some value to everybody. But before we get this rolling, Chris, how you doing, buddy?
Yeah, I'm really good. Thanks, Tom. I'm super excited to be on, especially talking about AI. I mean, this is right up my street. I am a big fan. I'm a tech geek like yourself, so I'm really looking forward to a friendly debate.
Right. So, all right, let's start this off. Let me start this off by just kind of maybe setting the table, and then we can get kind of deeper into this. So, initially, and this was probably 3 weeks ago, I was talking with my internal team here at Expivia, and we said, hey, listen, we're getting really good at, or at least I think we're getting good at, writing prompts in a chat GPT world for a lot of different things that we're trying to do from a business standpoint. And, it wasn't even me. It was one of my IT guys said, well, what about QA? And I didn't really even think about it for a second and just kind of let it go. But then that night, it just kind of just stayed in my head. So the next day, and the cool thing about being like the CEO of a company that's not a huge company with, like 4 or 5 IT guys, is I can just be like, hey, everybody drop what you're doing and let's talk about this. So that's what we did. And we kind of spent the day and we started to prompt and kind of look at our forms and said, oh my gosh, I think that this could be done. That night or the next night, I did my first, because again, being the shameless self promoter that I am, I think I went on TikTok and LinkedIn and said, hey, listen, I think if 3 or 4 of us at little old Expivia, that's not even a software company, can kind of figure this out. My initial thought was by the end of the year, right, full QA, and I kind of gave it was kind of set as a warning, right? So initially, Chris, we talked about this as kind of being a 6-month process, but I think it's one of the low hanging fruits, right, when it comes to how AI can have an impact. And again, I'm gonna stop there, let you kind of talk through that, and then let's get deeper into kind of some of the things that I think we can do now and that can happen now, and then maybe we can talk through some of that stuff.
Yeah, well, I think the discussions that we had in EvaluAgent that you had with your IT team, I think we were probably a good few months prior. We all our IT team, our tech team got together and decided to go for it and see what was possible, and that prompted the release of Smart Score. And we've spoken about it before, where it uses the large language models and generative AI to be able to score the conversations. And since then, I was completely swept up in it. I bought into it. I'm romanced by it. I'm a huge fan of ChatGPT. I mean, just last night I was using it to play Dungeons and Dragons. Very, very cool. But I think since, from the conversations that I've been having with, other contact center professionals, they're not as caught up in AI as perhaps the kind of techie minded people are. And for me, that grounded me somewhat, because there is huge potential, but I think it's for a lot of people, they're not quite ready yet. There's a huge change coming for sure, but I think it's going to be a journey for people to be able to buy into that and understand the potential and the limitations as well, because it can do amazing things, but there is limitations for sure. And the key driver, I guess, to overcome those limitations is the human component. and I think that's going to be the case for certainly the foreseeable future. So for me, I'm comfortable that AI will not replace QA for now.
Well, I think here's my counter to that is I think we might take AI too far sometimes. And we might think when we talk about machine learning and we talk about, these type of things where it actually gets smarter, I think that I agree with you. Like if we got to the point where it would be, I'm going to take all of the data that comes into the call center, I'm going to quote unquote score 100% of it. I'm going to look at, also, handle time, and then look at a correlated score, and then talk to Janie here and prompt that Janie's, scores are and her a handle time, which means she probably has an issue here, right? Like if we get to that point, I don't think we're there yet. But all I'm looking for, and I think all we need is a utilitarian tool that can score things. And to be honest, I think a chat GPT is taking the learning piece out of this is the perfect tool. The problem is not the problem, but I think the problem for a software company and why nobody's been able to do this yet and why it can't scale yet is it's very difficult, right, to prompt, right?
Yes.
Because everyone's QA form is, and nobody wants to use, again, and again, I'm not saying nobody wants to use like a smart score or any of that, because I think that is a giant leap forward. But for this to have kind of a mainstream, wow, I think I want to try to use this, is whether you're a BPO and I have clients and they've had a scorecard for 25 years, right? They don't care that I can, give this other score. They know that an 82 means this, a 94 means this, because they've been using this scorecard. Mm-hmm. And I think from a small BPO, I can take the time and I can write an awesome, unbelievable prompt for that customer that takes into account the type of call that it is. If somebody says, I want to cancel, I know that this is a retention call and it's this type of form and I need this kind of verification. And then these 15 questions get answered yes or no, or 1 through 5. And then I need a disclosure. I can write a prompt with outputs for that. Now, I will agree with you, to scale that is a whole different ballgame, right? To be a company like you guys, or to be any of those kind of software companies that are looking on the call center side, to even the CCaaS players, to scale that. Because how do you write a prompt for everybody? How do you get that so good? Where I think, again, it's where I agree with you that I think the general people utilizing this is not going to be for a while because people are still filling it out. But the technology to do it can be done right now.
Yeah. I mean, on that, I guess the weakest link when it comes to that technology is us, because when you mention about building the prompts, it's a completely new way of working. I think when this technology first appeared and all you do is give it a prompt, I think the kind of thinking is, and it's a fair enough train of thought, you give it one line, one sentence, and that's your prompt, and it can do all of these weird and wonderful things. But I think now as we're learning more, those prompts can be or they should be as complex as needed in order to get those complex results. I mean, potentially your prompts could be 4, 5, 6 paragraphs long, but it requires, I think, us to have a change in the way that we think. Because certainly QA professionals, they'll be consciously competent or unconsciously competent on, what's a good experience, what's a bad experience, what's the good for soft skills or compliance and so forth. But the AI doesn't know that. So it requires us to build those prompts to really take a step back and be more consciously competent and really define what each and every outcome should be. And also thinking about the what ifs. If this happens, this should be what you do next. You really need to, I think, be specific about exactly what you want to measure. And includes things as well, like the guidelines that you would give, currently you would give your human evaluators. Traditionally, or certainly what I've seen, those are, very, very sparse, because there is that expectation that you expect your evaluators and your QA team to know what good looks like. That's ultimately their job. But in order, I think, to utilize this technology in the best way, those guidelines need to be super descriptive, because all of that information pushing into a prompt, that's what's going to give you the best results.
Yeah, I agree. But I will say this too, a big thing with this is I think you just have to be close, right? When it comes to the score. And let me kind of expound upon that. Like if I'm scoring a call and Susie here scoring a call and Jimmy scoring a call and Janie scoring a call, we're going to probably all come up close, but we could be, this could be a 92. You could be at an 89.5. You could be at a 91. Like we're going to be in that world. What I have found, and again, if little old Expivia with a non-software company is creating prompts for our customers right now, that when we score them, right, with chat, and now granted, we've had to do a lot of work on the prompts, to your point, scaling this to from a software standpoint, but the chat GPT and the AI has democratized this for everybody, right? So again, if we're figuring this out with 4 of us and we're having our QA guys then calibrate, and again, sometimes we're on, sometimes we're off, but it's 84s to 82.5s, right? And again, when you're in QA, you don't care so much about that, right? That it's that close. I mean, you care if it's a 90 to a 54 and an auto fail, right? I mean, that's a big deal. But it has made me think again, and the main thought that I have here is if we can figure this out, and we figured it out for our clients, and we're going to roll this out to our clients in a week, and we've only taken a couple weeks to kind of figure out the prompts for some of this stuff. Now I wish that where you CX1, I wish CX1 had a way that we could send our forms back into CX1, like some type of API, or that we can't, like everything we're doing now is kind of outside that world.
Yeah.
But it makes me think if there's a you guys, or if there's a CCAS company that has 400 or 1,000 programmers that are working on this stuff, that this is going to happen really, really fast. And I can't see a world where someone's not going to be able to figure out how to do these prompts really, really well in an easier form with some type of wizard or widget, right? That can almost use AI to build your form out to then score like you're doing there.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, there's I've seen plenty on, prompts that help you with your prompts, get your, here's what you just put in, and you can refine your prompts, tell it what you want, and it will give you that, that prompt, and it works pretty well. The thing for me is when it comes to using this sort of technology, it's trust. Can you categorically trust the scores that are coming out from that AI? When you mentioned about, there's we all score things and it might be slightly different. And yeah, in the grand scale of things, it's not a huge difference, but perhaps to an agent, that might be, particularly if that meant a difference between a pass and fail. So in those cases, then I would worry that there would be disengagement from that agent. They don't believe in the scoring because, well, listen, that was an ideal call. I was told by the team leader that, the call was fine. It was just the AI that scored that. Because that's just what the score produced. So that's my worry, because I think we spoke before where there may be a shift towards coaching, and I think that is a really important point, because ultimately the whole reason that we do the evaluations and the scoring, yes, to measure the quality, but it's ultimately to use the insight to be able to coach the performance in the agent. So when we remeasure it, it's going to give that increased score. And I always worry that in these sorts of things, that where it's purely AI driven, you've got tons and tons of data, absolutely. But if there's slight mistakes in that, then the agents won't buy into it. So then when you're trying to coach an agent on AI data that they don't believe in, I feel as if you'd have a barrier there.
I guess we're assuming though that humans don't make any mistakes. You know what I mean? Like, because we have
But is it more forgivable?
Because I mean, we have seen too, and again, it hasn't happened a lot. I mean, to be fair, it has not, but we have calibrated calls where we had a little bit of difference. And when we had a group of people or the supervisor then go look at it, right? The chat GPT score was more pure to the scorecard than kind of some of the nuanced things. And maybe that's bad or good, right? Because the agent may know a little bit like, well, I let that one go a little bit, or but I would say this too, is if that's what's happening, first of all, the form's probably a little bit wrong. And second of all, we can add that into the prompt. I think again from a small scale deal. I mean, I don't know why every call center, and I don't know if I should say that or not, but should maybe look at even just taking a transcript, going into the UI UX, right? Don't use the APIs, right? Forget that for right now. Go into the UI UX and then start playing with that. And Chris, I just think more people are going to start doing that and realize, holy cow,
Oh yeah, yeah.
like I think the speed of this thing now is at Mach 30 as it's been. Let me say this too. Let me ask you, because there's something I do agree with you on that we need to figure out as an industry. And we talked about this the last podcast, which was, let's say that we do automate QA and that's great. Then what the heck do we do with all the data, right? We kind of talked that through. So before, let's say I have 1,000 calls that come in, and normally I'd have a human being. We'd score, I don't know, let's just say 50 calls in that day or whatever that number is. But now I have 900 calls that are scored that we're using AI.
Yeah.
What do we, what do we do with that? And that almost adds like, oh, there needs to be another analytic or another AI then that comes on top of that to make it even useful. Like, so is it even good to do? I think those are some questions as well.
Oh, for sure. I mean, when we look at the kind of usual conversation coverage percentage for for a QA team, it's probably around 3% of all of the conversations, and that always shocks me. Where you're looking at 96%, 97% are left completely unchecked. So I think a definite advantage is being able to use AI to give that 100% coverage, and I think because that technology does exist, I think what we'll see probably sooner rather than later is that it'll become a requirement to have that, higher level of conversation coverage. So getting all of that data is going to be invaluable, because I think the key thing with having all of that data is not using it just to farm out to agents and show, here's all of your evaluations, here's the reports, here's what we're going to talk about. I think that data needs to be restricted to, key members of the team to be able to draw out the key insights in there. Because if you give all of that information to, into the general population, I think it would be overwhelming. Because when you say, if you're scoring 1,000 calls and you're getting 1,000 results and 1,000 insights and, potentially thousands of bits of feedback, I would be overwhelmed. I'd be too focused on that rather than dealing with the customer on the end of that telephone. And I think that's what we always need to be mindful of. But then again, that's bringing the focus back into the human element. I think the human element is important in there to be able to filter all of that stuff out, so that those agents are getting human filtered insights and feedback rather than it just coming directly from the AI.
Yeah, and again, I know we disagreed on who should do the coaching, but I think maybe this is another reason why a on floor, like let's just say, and again, we're thinking this through. I have no answers. Like I have theories, right? Like, and I don't think anybody, right? No one at this point has answers.
It's moving so fast. That's the thing,
right? Like no one knows the really what to do. It's just, and that's what's cool about it. You can be first, but maybe that's good, maybe that's bad. Like, because again, there's so many people thinking this through. But I think that when we do have something scored, if we do go this AI route, in our call center at least, if we do have a lower score, it does go to the supervisor. The supervisor will listen to the call and then coach the agent. And I think that can be a little bit of a buffer as well if we think something is way off. I think we are thinking through, there needs to be almost, you don't want to say the same QA staff is now going to calibrate the AI, right? Like, but how do you QA the AI? Like, these are things to think about. Like, we probably wouldn't get rid of 15 QA. Not when I say get rid, move them to like a coaching aspect or move them onto the floor, have another role or be a prompt person, right? But
that's going to be a whole new industry, prompt engineering. That's
thinking that stuff through,
exciting thing for sure.
And again, I think to have a smaller team to then be kind of QAing the AI, which maybe that defeats the purpose, maybe it doesn't. But again, it's like you need to build things. It's the chicken or the egg. Like, that's great that we have this all of these calls scored, but now we almost, to utilize use of that, we need that tool from an AI standpoint to utilize all of this data, right? To say, because what's important is it's not just the low scores. We're full analytics now, right? So we're looking at, hey, maybe, these key phrases that came in today, right? So the whole analytics platform that you had with the bubbles and all that go away. And it's almost like this becomes the whole thing, right? Because this is what customers are talking about. So the QA and analytics, they always were, well, at least they were siloed before, now starting to kind of merge together. And what do we talk about? What is important? What do we talk to an agent? Is it just the low stuff? Is it they miss these closing signals, or this is marketing data that came in from customers? All of this data comes in that somehow that's the new analytics, is what we're kind of talking about from an AI. So maybe you're right. I mean, maybe this isn't ready for prime time from there. That's that kind of AI machine learning. But just taking a certain specific amount of calls and scoring, at least for now, I think is the first baby step that we're making towards this robust analytics QA world that we're about to see in a year, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it's as I was saying, it is moving very, very fast, and I think a lot of people are concerned about that. I got an email in just earlier today, and it was I think I've got the stat here. It was talking about, it was a survey that Axios done, and 82% of Americans think that we should slow down AI development. And I'm kind of on the fence about it, because I think at the moment there's certainly plenty for us to get to grips with, because it is baby steps, it is a journey, and I think if it goes too fast, we'll become overwhelmed, and there'll just be so much that we don't know what to do with. And I think with that journey where we can start to dip our toe into using artificial intelligence for QA, we can see the potentials, we can refine it as we go along, we can see those benefits. But I think in terms of how we make sure that data is correct, I mean, one way I guess that could happen is the 3% coverage that call centers typically get now with their QA teams. That 3% could be focused on calibrating the results from the AI. So that's another thing, I guess, that could potentially happen. But for me, the kind of main element, it always has been, is the coaching. Where the QA element and gathering all of that stuff, it's a means to an end. It's about coaching the most important asset in a contact center, which is the agent. And I reckon getting the insights from the AI, that can fuel your coaching conversations, absolutely. But ultimately, that conversation needs to be a human interaction in order to get
Chris,
that.
don't you think that could help that? Because I agree with you. Like, I don't want AI. We're not there to AI coach or even to send feedback to an agent. But the prompts that we have found, right, and the outputs that we're asking for, right, that we have tested, things like, all right, please score the call, give me the overall customer and agent sentiment, give me 5 things that the agent could work on that to make this score higher. If you gave somebody under 90%, please go into detail of the things that you didn't do. Like just testing all this crazy stuff. Right?
Yeah.
And I think that helps, right? Because again, I don't want that going to the agent, because they could be. But if I can get that, I don't want to say piece of paper, but that on a desktop, right? And to have that my supervisor or now the QA person that I don't need to score calls go coach with all of this extra. That's the stuff that I think I can do right now. That really excites me. And it's shifting the burden of scoring a call, right, to making the contact center better with humans, because I'm getting all this extra data that I wouldn't get before. I think that's what's exciting me. And I think what can happen now, and we're going to see this just scale exponentially now moving forward. And that's kind of, again, why I think, by the end of this year, like if you're getting into QA, I think it's you have to rethink what QA means, right? It's coaching now. It's maybe looking at prompting, but it's not scoring calls, because I think that, again, I'm pretty sure that is the first shoe to drop here in this AI world.
The thing is, I think the scoring of calls it's boring. It's all right at the beginning of the week, when you're enthusiastic, you're motivated, but by midweek, the end of the week, you are exhausted. You're listening to the calls, it's ticking the little boxes and so forth. So the quality of probably your scoring and your feedback is that goes way downhill, because at that point you just want to get it over and done with. So I think in that respect, AI is absolutely going to be a game changer, because it's given us, it's working at maximum effort every single time, and that's a really cool thing. And I think you're right, it is going to change the way that QA works in that respect, for sure. And that's very, very exciting, and it is moving so fast. It's moving really, really fast, and I think we are, there's concerns about, is it moving too fast? I think that's down to us to make sure that the way that we are using it is, we don't lose sight of the overall goal. It's about getting insight, coaching performance, and and going from there. I don't think we can get too carried away with it. It's easy to do for sure, because the things that it's able to do just by prompts and things like that is amazing. But I think we need to be grounded when it comes to QA. I mean, it will happen. It's on a trajectory, and we could just enjoy the ride. But I think we just need
Right.
to be mindful, because I'm loving what's happening in such a short space of time as well. It's been amazing, but I think we
Crazy.
just I think we just need to be mindful, because certainly when I'm talking about AI and I'm talking about smart score, I get super excited about it, because it's such a cool thing. Seeing that score just magically appear, and all of that feedback and that insight is excellent. And when I show it to people, it's that is really, really cool, which is great. But it's, well, listen, I've enjoyed seeing that, but show me your core product, because we still need to QA. Right now we're using spreadsheets, so that's that's
Yep.
way down for us. And I think that's something that always surprises me, as well as the number of people that are still QAing using spreadsheets. So there is huge opportunities for progressive organizations using this sort of tech, but there's still a lot of people there that are very early on in their QA journey, which is absolutely fine.
Yeah. Chris, let's talk about EvaluAgent here for a second, in your guys' roadmap or your guys' plan, or how you plan to tackle kind of this. I mean, I know you guys have the smart score, and you guys are working on that from the machine learning and the AI standpoint. I mean, again, I don't know if you you speak for the company. I mean, I'm sure you can kind of elaborate just a little bit on what are some of the things that you guys are working on, or and where do you see this going? As kind of, I don't want to say an end goal, because there's no end, but down the road. I mean, what are some of the things that you guys are actively working on to improve, or to kind of change what everybody's doing?
Well, I mean, we've got Smart Score already, and that's brand new, based on using those large language models. And what that's doing is score your conversations. It will give reasons as to why you're scoring it, and give that insight as well. Improvement suggestions. The key thing there is it's for the human evaluator to decide whether that is correct, and also the level of feedback that that's going to then pass on to the agent. And what we're also using that tech for is to be able to summarize the conversation. So here we go. Here's some bullet points as to what happened in that conversation. And that's not just text tickets, that's phone conversations as well. Now, the cool thing that we can also do with this tech is sentiment analysis based on the content that happened in that conversation. Here's key points. Here was empathy demonstrated. Here was customer frustration. And again, it's giving you that actionable insight to find the conversations that matter. And additionally, where that conversation is being analysed, the AI will be able to suggest things that, topics, missed moments, we've called them. So ultimately, if you are actively looking for a topic, that's great. It'll look for that. But it'll also give you suggestions where there's maybe something you've not thought to look for because you just didn't know it was happening. So it's able to give those suggestions. That's something that we're going to be looking at to be able to bring in.
Have you guys, I mean, are you working anything kind of in that prompting world, or are you staying more kind of almost what I would say maybe even advanced, right? Because looking at more the machine learning, the large language models, and how you can, develop tone and those types of things. What technologies are you guys playing around with, or utilizing, from that aspect as well?
Listen, there's so many large language models out there, and I think the most popular is, of course, ChatGPT. But what we found, and we always say this, it's not about the technology; it's about the application of the technology. So we are using a number of large language models, so that we're not reliant on one. Because one of the biggest worries, I guess, is ChatGPT is amazing, but what if it goes down? Your whole AI at that point is then down with it. So we're
Yeah.
able to just switch, instantly to using, another large language model. Customers have also got the option to be able to choose which one that they want to, they want to be able to, send their data to and analyze their conversations. But in terms of the prompts, we will provide guidance and education, but it's ultimately for, and this I guess is giving rise to this new sort of kind of industry. We ultimately guide and train our customers to be able to use the prompts and write the prompts for themselves, because you'll know from writing the prompts for your scorecards, there is a million different ways that things can
Correct.
get measured and a million different things that customers want to measure. We can never write prompts to cover all of that. So it's very much about educating the customer in order to get the best out of it. But like I mentioned earlier, where your prompt could maybe be refined, and maybe just be tweaked a little bit, we can use the AI to do that as well. Just by clicking a button, it can refine that prompt and give you a suggestion, to make that a little bit better. So it's definitely a journey in that respect, where you constantly need to make sure that your outputs are accurate, because it may be for 100 conversations, yeah, it's giving you the results that you want, but then there could be 2, 3, 4 that are not quite accurate because it's a slightly different conversation. So I think it's about monitoring it consistently to be able to tweak that prompt when you need it. And that's going to be a big focus, I reckon, is making sure that the prompts are accurate as much as possible. But it is going to be a journey. It's constantly testing it, which is a cool place to be, I think. It's never going to be an end goal, as you say.
Yeah. No, and I think, what I was just on a call before the podcast, and we were having this discussion, and it's kind of a good lead up, to talk to you. And the science is there. Everybody has the science, or it, the AI and the open AI and all these large language models has kind of democratized the science of this. Like, the tools are there. It's turned into an artist and a creative world. And I think, from what we have found, developing those prompts, that's why I think it is very difficult. And you could be right. This could be maybe a little bit longer than we think, because I've talked to everybody, right? And you guys are in this, you guys might be a little bit ahead of where some of these guys are, but everyone wants to scale this thing. Right? You have to be able to have some type of kind of regimented way of doing a form, right? So that it can kind of pick some things up, because it's very difficult to kind of willy-nilly a prompt, right? Or just start to create some things.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's been the hard part. If you have a 1 through 10 questions, yes or no, you could do that tomorrow. But nobody has a down. Now, let me ask you this: do you guys see is there more importance for you to develop kind of your smart score technology to make that, I don't want to say an industry standard, but something that people can really trust? Or do you see, the bridge we're going to try to create other people's forms? Like, where do you guys think will have the most benefit for customers?
I think the way that, for us, customers should always be kind of in control. If they're looking for a little bit of guidance in order to create scorecards, and it's using that sort of kind of tech and prompts to be able to produce those elements, I think it should always be, here's what I would suggest, but it's ultimately up to them to be able to do that. The whole tech is about assisting, the way that we've termed it, and I think Microsoft are the same, where it's a co-pilot. It's there to just assist you doing the work that you do. So I think for us, it's always going to be in that regard. It's there to assist and advise, but ultimately it's always going to be the human component that makes the final decision. Because if it goes wrong, if there's something that's not done accurate, who are you going to blame? It's the AI. I mean, the AI doesn't know right from wrong. It's going to be the guy the guy whose job it is.
Right.
I think that's always going to be the key differentiator. There's always going to be a human component there to make the decision, because ultimately it's on them.
Do you see a world where we have in your just crystal ball, and not even speaking for EvaluAgent, let's just say speaking for you, do you see a world when there will be when automation of AI does happen? Like, how? I mean, I think it will happen. I mean, I think you and I just kind of maybe disagree on I don't even say the speed of it, but who can use it when, I think, is probably the biggest differentiator. But when do you see that happening? Like, when do you see the technology kind of overtaking what a human can do? And what I'm sure with what you guys are developing, what other people are developing.
I think there's two things I think that I think about because I think about this question a lot, and for me, there's the technology is developing rapidly, and I think the if it was left to just sort of kind of go its own way, and there was no regulation and there was no restrictions, and it was just let's do it, I think we'd be talking probably, oh gosh, certainly within the next 5 years, we'd be seeing that sort of kind of level of automation, across, because every app that you open now, there's, here we've introduced AI. You want to
Right.
create a
Even
picture,
LinkedIn now.
in your
This
prompt.
LinkedIn thing is blowing my mind.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, I saw
yeah,
that
like what?
today. And it was like, I'm going to try this, and do you know what? It wasn't all that good.
No,
I was like, well, it's a fair enough suggestion, but I'll just write it my own way. Which then, I guess, it means the human component still, I still make the decision. But I think the biggest driver for making it probably longer than that is going to be the human component, because I think we're right to be um, cautious about not running too fast with it. Even the OpenAI themselves are calling for regulation and things, and I think that is really important, because there's, as it's coming out more into the mainstream, there's it's great hearing all of these cool things, but along with that, getting into the mainstream news, there's a lot of scaremongering where it's like AI has done this and it's cost all of these jobs, and the end of the world with AI. And I think it gets headlines and it gets viewers. Absolutely get that, but I think it's not accurate. It's absolutely not accurate. It's about understanding the tech and see what it can do, because ultimately, if we're not using it, if we're not giving it any input,
yeah,
it doesn't do anything. So, and I think it is. This is the start of the journey where not just the sort of kind of tech minded people will be learning about this. I think everyone's going to be going on that journey where everyone's starting to use it, because you can get away from it. It is in every app that you open, and it will just become second nature. There'll be that expectation that there's some sort of AI driven component in everything that you use. And I think that's part of the journey, because by the time that it does jump to the next level, everyone will be used to using AI in the current sort of kind of format it is just now. Where you're seeing the difference between Chat GPT 3.5 to 4, that is a huge, it's so cool when you see the difference by, here's a prompt I'm putting into 4 and its output is excellent, but then you put it into 3.5 and it's not quite the same. So even that jump is astronomical, but that's not available for everyone. It's only the people that are looking to go out and find that, letting willing to invest and understanding that tech, that are getting those benefits. But sooner rather than later, that will start to come out to the mainstream and people will really start to embrace it. And you know what? I think it's a good thing. There's no escaping it.
and there are a couple drawbacks too. I will say, to some of the points that you just made. First of all, there's a security aspect, right, of data on
Mhm.
ChatGPT. The good thing that I at least felt a little bit better with as we were testing is, utilizing the APIs, they at least don't model off those, which I'm not saying that's 100% secure, but made me feel a little bit better.
Yeah.
I think that, there is the cost, right? So, voice for ChatGPT is coming, and I keep hearing I keep using it's months, not quarters, right? So to get rid of transcripts, right, and to actually use the voice recording, um, which is good and bad, because there's a little bit of I think a length of time and could be a little bit slower, but again, you're getting the actual thing that's being said. Even looking at some of these, if you're using an Excel spreadsheet, right, we can talk about automating QA, but the bottom line is, in today's 2023 August 10th, you need a transcript, right? And
Mm.
if you're using Excel, you don't have transcripts. You have just a recording, if that, right? So I think there's some
Yeah.
drawbacks to thinking some of those things through, of a full recording to transcript to outputs to, right. There's a lot to this that I think it's one thing to say, again, that the technology is there, and I think the technology is there in its kind of naked self. But then when you kind of peel back the layers, that's obviously the devil's in the details, right? To try to really make this thing to work. But it is an exciting time. It is happening so fast. I can't wait to see what you guys come up with these actual software, kind of SaaS providers that all they're thinking about is this and QA, and
Oh
not
yeah.
even
Yeah.
just any of the call center stuff, and what we're about to see from a use case scenario is going to be pretty exciting.
For sure. I mean, the going back to what you were mentioning about the security aspect, that's it's right to consider that. And one of the benefits of using, I guess an organization like EvaluAgent, we've thought of all of that. We'll create the transcripts of the conversations, we'll send all of that through, and the tech already exists to be able to identify sensitive components of your conversation that you might not want to be transferred through to the large language model. So you get that option where you can delete that. And I think it's important to have that peace of mind that your data is safe and secure, and that's always going to be a fundamental consideration, because data that's your greatest asset aside from the agent.
And again, I was going to wrap up, but you said something there too, and I've had these again. Everybody knows that we utilize Nice CX1 for kind of our platform, and the conversation that I've had with them too of talking about data, right? And the new valuable item out there is data, and Chris Crosby, who I love, and he posts a lot on kind of the AI tech side of the contact center world. He had a post out the other day where he talked about, he goes, they're utilizing all of our data, and we kind of technically own that. We pay for that data from all the call center work and the transcripts and the recordings. And sometimes it's very hard to get to that data to kind of play with some of the things that we want to do. And that's another thing. I mean, that's a discussion for a whole nother time, but the value of data, right? Because of what you can do with that when you have these kind of, a lot of it, but it's on this one kind of topic, right? That we're like our call center, this program, this skill, and the insights that you can get from an AI standpoint when it's so clean, right? Because that data is just super clean on what we want. That's the next thing that everybody's got to think through, is because people are going to want that, because they're going to be able to do things like we're doing right now with APIs of ChatGPT and OpenAI. They're going to want to start to build their own stuff with their data. That's going to be really interesting kind of discussions on how that's all going to play out too.
Yeah, absolutely. It's exciting, because this is, I think, just to start over, and we're just going to see it's going to go leaps and bounds, the things that we're able to do. And I think the safeguarding data is going to be paramount. Absolutely.
I got another question for you. I'm sorry. I'm getting.
Oh, no, this conversation. It sparks so many things.
I know. What do you think about? And again, I think this is a great question for you guys, because I know the scoring aspect is important, but you guys are about evaluating the agent, the coaching of the agent, helping facilitate that whole kind of nuanced thing where we can make the contact center, make the agent better with technology. Do you guys see a point too where the AI, and I know you're very people involved, but the coaching aspect is another thing that people don't talk a lot about, right? When it comes to AI, I think that is a little bit more advanced than where we are now. I would totally agree with you on that. But I mean, have you guys had some discussions on that, on some type of automation with the coaching aspect, or giving subtle hints, or how do you guys view that? Or is that just something that we're not really looking at that right now?
See, I think that's certainly something that's we would consider probably a lot further down the line. And I think the reason being is, given tips, for coaching tips, absolutely. But in terms of automating coaching, coming back to that human element, AI will never be able to truly show things like, empathy. And I think certainly for me, in my opinion, that is the most important aspect of coaching, is to be able to show empathy to your coachee, to be able to pick up on those triggers and respond to that, and have a human conversation. I don't think you'll ever get that with a machine.
I'm with you on that. I mean, I think maybe there's some things that from an agent assist standpoint that maybe we could be prompting some agents with, but I think from the overall coaching aspect, I think you're just asking for a revolt, right? Like, I mean, they're to just, and it's cold, right? I think it's cold to just be like, and it's one thing to score call and just send them the score, which I don't even really like to do, and we don't really do that either. But like, here was your call, here was your score, fix this, do this, and here's even a snippet of the call. Like, I don't know if that would resonate. I'd probably be like, go pound salt, right? Like, I think there still there's a human element there for sure.
Oh yeah, I mean, I remember I was thinking about this earlier, where your smart speakers, they were amazing when they came out, and they could do all of these amazing things. But I do not speak to anybody like I speak to my smart speaker. The abuse that thing gets, and that's because there's no emotion in there. And even now, if we're having a conversation and you knew that I was a computer generated avatar, the conversation would be completely different, because it would be one-sided in terms of that emotional connection, and that's never going to be changed.
All right, Chris, I appreciate it, man. This has been so much fun. I mean, it's amazing. Even, we talked, I think, February-ish, maybe. I don't know if that sounds about right. No, it's before Call Contact Center Expo. And I mean, the change that has happened in 6 months, like we didn't touch on a lot of these. I mean, I wasn't even thinking about this stuff 6 months ago. So, it's awesome to see what you guys have been kind of doing way before the curve here, from thinking through this AI piece, and I think in a really smart, intelligent way to try to help our coaches and our contact center agents, but still trying to catch everything that we possibly can, without that, without a little bit of human touch, to make things go a lot better. So take maybe the last couple of minutes. Just where can people find you? You on LinkedIn, in the company. I know they can go to EvaluAgent.com, and maybe some of the main things that you guys do, but go ahead. This is
check us out. So EvaluAgent.com, you'll be able to find us there, and you'll be able to explore the AI for yourselves. We've got plenty of product tools out there where you can play around with it, see what it does. And if you're looking to see more, then absolutely get in touch. You'll find me on LinkedIn as well, very active on there, and I'm usually, putting up videos on my thoughts in AI, coaching. Coaching is very close to my heart. So there's loads of stuff out there. I love to talk about it. So yeah, anyone that's interested, then look me up.
I will tell you guys, if anybody who's listening or will be listening, the podcast that Chris and I did before, we talked specifically on coaching. Chris gave amazing coaching techniques, how to do coaching. So I've chopped those things up 42 times. I've posted them so many times, and I think it's really, really good stuff. So make sure you check that out. Not just this one, but check out that one.
For sure.
Out what we did February 2. Chris, love you, brother. Good conversation, man. I think that this is exciting time. We got to do this every once in a while, and let's see what happens the next 6 months.
Absolutely, Tom. It was excellent. Thanks a lot for having me.
All right, buddy. We'll talk.
All right. Take it easy.